My name is Gerard Blokdijk, and today we're having a look at DLP, or Data Loss Prevention, as it is known. Now, what's DLP? DLP is not just one thing. DLP is a collection. It's a collection of technologies. It's a collection of tools that monitor and protect business data in general, from unauthorized access to make sure that the data is protected in your organization. That's what DLP is, and you have tools for that. And quite often they're aligned into one tool, and we'll show you some of those as well. So, what is DLP technology, data loss prevention technology? What is it specifically? It can be defined as technologies that perform both content inspection and contextual analysis of data sent via email, instant messaging, or messaging applications in general, or data that's in motion over the network, or data that's in use on a managed endpoint device, and that rests in on-premises file servers or in cloud applications, cloud storage. Basically any data that resides anywhere or is streaming and or in motion. These solutions, they execute responses, DLP technology solutions based on policy and rules defined to address the risk of inadvertent or accidental leaks or exposure of sensitive data outside the authorized channels. So that's what a DLP technology solution does. Now, there's many DLP solutions out there, tools specifically that focus on one or more areas of what we've described. Some of them are endpoint protector, Symantec DLP, McAfee DLP, Forcepoint DLP, Secure Trust, Digital Guardian, Trend Micro. Loads of them are available out there. These are some of the best tools that cover a lot of ground that we'll be going through in this half an hour. And you can't go wrong with any of those, basically. But as discussed, there's three types of DLP: network, endpoint, and cloud. So three areas that we need to configure where the data is stored. Endpoint can be the server here in my organization or my mobile device. Network, endpoint, and cloud. All three deliver the same results, data protection, but the methods used vary from one type to the next. How you actually do that, the DLP for that. Why do you need DLP? Well, it's pretty straightforward. When used in conjunction with complementary controls, and we're going to dive into those as well, it helps to prevent the accidental exposure or inaccidental exposure of confidential information across all devices. Insider threat is another thing that you often need to worry about, where DLP can help you out with. So wherever data is, where it lives, be it in transit or on the network, at rest or in storage, or in use live, DLP can monitor it and significantly reduce the risk of data loss. So that's what it is. So it's not just DLP. When you first come across it, you think data losing. Is it the loss of a disk drive? Is it about backups? No, it's about protection of data. That's specifically what it is. Now, let's have a look at what we have here. We've got here the big hairball of DLP, data loss prevention. What we see here are the critical capabilities, the big blue balls, the things that we absolutely need to have in place to make sure that DLP, data loss prevention, is in place, or in other words, that our data is protected. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can read what's on the screen. Here, top right, check that your staff reviews audit logs, alerts, and reports relevant to data protection scenarios and assesses for improvements. Certify your staff as having involvement, building and optimizing big data pipelines, architectures and data sets, promote a strong risk culture, use analytical skills, etc., etc. Conduct risk process improvement, design, staff creating risk management programs to mitigate risk to the organization, etc., etc. So this is where you can actually see all the details that go into DLP. These are all the things that need to be done for data loss prevention. Now, I promised you what are the top three most important questions to ask for DLP. Now, let's start out with the number three most important question to ask, and that will get us through. That will show us a lot of detail in relationship to DLP to make sure that we're covering all grounds. Okay, top three question. Number three: do you enforce DLP policies in real time as data is uploaded or shared without impacting end user experience. So DLP is sort of like a sniffer. It can feel like a sort of a detection software that's on top of my data, which it actually is. But what you can't have then is slowing down the whole experience for an end user, impacting the end user experience. So how do you actually do that? You lead the service delivery team in delivering a wide array of cybersecurity solutions, including vulnerability penetration testing, web application security, security information and event management, SIEM, SIEM, file integrity monitoring, which is very much related to DLP, data loss prevention itself, and identity and access management. So here you see all the related areas to DLP that we need to have in place to protect our data. And we do that by, for instance, asking another question: where should the administrator place the web proxy? That's a very specific question, and we're going to ask that of the endpoint security engineer. This is a typical job role that has responsibility and accountability for DLP solutions in an organization. Um, and it's what we see here as well is this is a must-have activity that we need to have in place, a must-have use case. All the critical capabilities in the Kanban. There's 2,316 in them, 18 in them because this is the top three. All these critical capabilities and all this information, you can find them in the link below. And in the show notes, if you go there, you click through, you'll find the whole Kanban that's built in Airtable that you can sort, filter, search through, and you find all this information there. What we've done here, what you're looking at right now, is we downloaded the information, uploaded into this knowledge graph software called Neo4j that enables us to show how everything's connected in an interesting way and a visual enhanced way. Now, another thing that we see here is that we see here a small blue ball. The small blue ball is a cybersecurity maturity model certification, it says here, and that is the area this comes from, this is related to. So DLP Technologies, they touch upon a lot of different areas. This is one of the areas it relates to. If I double click on that, we got other areas that we need to focus on when we do this. Check out your personnel response to SIEM, DLP, endpoint security, CASB, HR separation, good one, internal tickets and requests during on-call rotation. And this one, perform engineering tuning and provide guidance of mobile and endpoint security controls and hardening, including AV, endpoint detection and response, DLP, and encryption. That's what we need to have in place. We specifically focus on the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, CMMC, related to DLP technologies. So here you have out of the top three most important questions, the third question: do you enforce DLP policies in real time as data is uploaded or shared without impacting end user experience? Make sure that you do that. Let's step up and go to the next question. Number 2 in the top 3 most important questions to ask. Can your cloud defenses apply DLP policies to cloud services and app data at rest and in motion? Do your cloud defenses have that in place? So secure that your organization manages DLP for corporate email security solutions, as well as DLP for information residing on corporate networks that may have to be at rest or in motion or in the cloud. How will you respond to ransomware attacks affecting your network or users? It's related to security, which is the main keyword here. We have main keywords, the AI and the machine learning that built all this came up with the most important keywords that are related to DLP, to data loss prevention, and this is one of the keywords, obviously. So if you double click on that, we'll see a whole lot of activity going on. So these are all the activities that need to be in place to make sure that security is covered specifically. Let's go back to the balls again. The questions: can your cloud defenses apply PLC policy? So this is where we were. Another thing that we see here is, we see here patch management. Remember what we spoke of before. These are related topics related to DLP that we need to have in place. So for patch management, we need to organize this. What we also see here are other words in the small gray boxes. So the small gray boxes, they help me by with thinking about what do we need to cover when we do this activity here in the big blue ball. So we need to take care of privacy. We need to take care of vulnerability. We need to do patching, security, keywords that I need to be thinking of in conversations and while building plans for all of this. So this is the top two. Now let's go to the number one, the most important question to ask. And here are the top three of your most important questions to ask for DLP technologies. Does your organization have policies in place preventing employees from copying client data to mobile devices, external media, or forwarding it to third email parties? There we go. Email protection, data protection. It's often overlooked in organizations, surprisingly, data protection, email protection, because it's not really. It is a way of transporting data, but we don't really manage it as a way of transporting data. It's an easy way to send an attachment or a link to somewhere else to transport your data. So make sure it's your DLP, and especially for insider threats, this is the most critical area to focus on when you deal with DLP. Another question we can ask here is what interface provides a single sign-on access for the purpose of administering DLP service, managing policies, and remediating incidents. So we want to have single sign-on in place to make sure that our SIEM systems and our access systems are all aligned and use the same repository and source, basically. Make sure you design this building and administering security devices, including network, firewall, web proxy, DLP systems, and intrusion prevention systems. So that is what we need to have in place to make sure that email security is in place, specifically from insider threats. Safety critical systems, this is linked to as an area here, and here you see all the related keywords. So if I pull them all up, these are the top three most important questions to ask when you deal with DLP. And I open them all up and we can see how it's connected, because I like having this on screen. There, and that's that one. And then we see how they're all connected. See, let's drag this one over here a bit so we have them nicely on the screen. There. So this, what we have here, is basically a fairly interesting way of looking at our blueprint for DLP technologies. What do we need to have in place for DLP? These are the activities that we need to do. The big blue balls, that's what we need to have in place. The questions that we need to be asking ourselves to make sure that we have those big blue balls activities in place for DLP. And we can ask supporting questions, the pink balls, to make sure that we understand that we have that and we do that. And who are we asking these questions of? Of these people: information security manager, endpoint security engineer, and the network security engineer. So to make sure that we have those roles in place for DLP techniques to be successful in our organization. As you can see here as well, they're all a must-have activity. Our AI and machine learning has pulled up 2,300 of those user activities and everything that's connected to them, and has prioritized them. And that's why here you can find they're all must-have activities, prioritized from must-have to should-have or ought-to-have, way further down the track, where you can really think of, yeah, maybe we'll do that later, we'll consider it later, don't really need it now. But the must-haves are the ones that you really need to have in place to make sure that your DLP is in order. These are the three questions you need to ask, and these are the activities that need to be in place. Think about these words, all the gray words, while you're doing this. Think of having these job roles in place, and think of all the supporting questions, the pink questions here in play, to make sure that security for DLP is in place. All right, so these are the three most important questions to ask. Now I can also, if I want to, focus on something specifically in here, and that's down below in the Kanban. You can search on that in that link as well. If I just want to focus on access control, for instance, and find a question that's related to access control, like let's ask something about access control. What's the difference between access control and file security? I'm going to ask that the data security head partner. Be certain that your staff has recent involvement with security configurations on cloud computing systems to make sure that they cover that. How do you leverage previous resource investments and extend existing on-premise data loss prevention policies to the cloud. Bam, there you have it. So for access control, I need to make sure that this is in place, and need to make sure that it's in place for cloud computing specifically as well, whereas that's the standard for many an organization these days. Now, if I just want to focus on access control as well, and I want to focus on all the big blue balls that I need to have in place for that, yep, here they are, bam. These are the activities related to DLP, and if I only want to focus specifically on access control, one part of DLP, then I take care of all these big blue balls. Make sure the security analyst maintains system access controls to protect data from unauthorized users. Boom, here are all the relationships between them. Interface so that your strategy is involved in configuring firewalls, access control lists, ACLs, network IDS IP, host IDS IPS, and DLP, etc. And here you go. Work with identity and access management to get standardized access controls for data, repositories. All these activities need to be in place for DLP if I specifically want to focus on access control. Blueprint, again, project. And the Kanban does that really easy for you. If you go down the link below, you find the Kanban. You can open it up full screen, click on Airtable, bottom right. And when you have access to that, you can easily assign all these tasks, all these process tasks, the big blue balls, to a group or a team member or a person or a role to make sure that it's all taken care of and that it's all done in your organization. Pretty straightforward when you do that, when you go there. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you is, and it's something that I really use a lot in team meetings and in management meetings, is this little beauty here, the word cloud. What AI and what our AI machine learning does is it builds a word cloud of the most important words in relation to DLP, to the topic at hand. So the most important words to DLP are control, troubleshooting, automation, planning, procedures, development, data, forecasting, monitoring, configuration, future, etc., software. So what I can do here now is to get the conversation going in a team meeting. I can go like, oh, I just want to focus on automation specifically to DLP. How are we going to do that? Create measurement and automation tools that provide for visibility, alerting, self-healing, and auto-ticketing. That's what we need to have in place. And poof. Okay, this is the how do we do that? What are the types of measurements? That's something I need to ask ourselves when we put automation in place. What are the types of measurements? I'm going to ask that of the endpoint security engineer. What do we actually measure? What can we measure? What kind of data do we have to make sure that we can do automation in our organization? Create measurement and automation tools. So this is when I just double click on automation and how that all comes up. I can simply have a small blueprint here or a small project like, oh, this is what we need to do to take care of automation in relation to DLP. Now, if I click on cloud, probably much more comes up. There you go. More comes up. I just clicked on cloud. You can still see it here in the middle. There it is. Cloud. I just clicked on cloud. These are all the activities that I need to have in place to make sure that DLP technologies are covered from the cloud perspective, from a cloud perspective. So warrant that your staff is involved in cloud native architectures or compatible architecture patterns. Verify that your personnel is involved in both cloud, AWS, Azure, and GCP, and on-prem environments. Be responsible for assessing tools and technology that support access, crypto, data loss prevention, and cloud solutions. There we go. So these are all the activities related to cloud. And I can double click on each and every one of them and they'll open up and unfold and they'll show you how everything's related. And before you know it, we'll have a big bowl of spaghetti on the screen that we then can focus on to figure out what we need to be doing. So the word cloud, here you have it. Really helpful solution to get us going into one direction that we want to focus on relationship to DLP. Now, I also have shown you the small blue balls, and the small blue balls, here they are. The small blue balls are the areas that DLP technologies touch upon, so the areas that you need to focus on as well when you deal with DLP. Let me show you some of the areas that are in here. Network security, safety critical systems, NIST cybersecurity framework, cyber operations, service desk, cyber incident response, technical surveillance countermeasures. We're looking at certifications here, GX, Certified Forensic Analyst, cyber threat hunting, legal analytics, zero trust network. See, all these areas I need to be focusing on, or at least touch upon, when I deal with DLP. There's probably some HR in here as well to make sure policies in place. SOAR, corporate security, even automotive security touches upon. Kill chain, critical incident stress management, GRC, operation strategy, cloud security, data maturity, etc., etc. I can click on one and see what comes up. Governance, risk, and compliance. Be certain that your group is involved in information security monitoring and implementation tools for PAM, IAM, CASB, DLP, and SIEM. Oversee incident response planning, data loss prevention, and remediation of breaches, serving as the focal point for response delivery, and establish technical and security requirements for data as data loss prevention standards, have them in place, data access procedures, data classification policy and standards, etc. So there you go. When I just click on the one topic, let's pull it up here screen so we can actually see it. If I just click on the one topic, just click on governance, risk, and compliance, what do I need to be thinking of in relationship to DLP? And that's where we have it. So I often pull this up in team meetings as well and in group sessions. Like, let's focus on this specific topic. And do we have this? And ask the supporting questions. Do we really have it? And do we have this role in place? Data security head. And do we have this role in place? Endpoint security engineer and information security manager, to make sure that we can actually deliver upon this. We have governance, risk, and compliance in place for our DLP technologies, our DLP solutions. Now, what are the processes and activities that must be in place? So the big blue balls, the use cases, if you have those three in place, I'm just doing the top three right now, the most important ones. If you have a tool set that does all this, or you have different tools in place that do all this, you're golden, you're set. Interface, so that your strategy is involved in security technologies such as automated penetration testing, security information and event management, SIEM, IDS, IPS, data loss prevention, that's the whole covering thing, proxy, web application firewall, endpoint detection and response, antivirus, sandboxing, network and host basing firewalls, threat intelligence, and etc. There's more. There's more in the other ones here as well. DDoS prevention solutions, for instance, we see here, access service, authorization services. So all these activities need to be in place to make sure that we have data loss prevention activated in our organization and working in our organization. So it's not just, and as you can see here, it's not just the one solution that you need to focus on. If you have a software vendor that comes up, I have the DLP solution for you, be wary, because a DLP solution needs to do all of these things. So you can ask your software vendor, does it cover all these things, or does it integrate with other tools that we have in place that do these activities? So make sure that we have a fully compliant DLP technology in place and cybersecurity basically in place. How effective is security awareness training for threat prevention? I'm asking here. What is threat intelligence, and how does it differ from antivirus research and security research? And do we actually have threat intelligence, and where does it come from? And how often do we update our threat intelligence, dear endpoint security engineer? And down here, how can remote monitoring networks be improved with more rapid access to data while preserving security and privacy? Related to cybersecurity regulation here, that's what we're keeping an eye on as well continuously, cybersecurity regulation. And that's obviously because we're dealing with governance and compliance a lot here when we're dealing with DLP. So this is your blueprint for having DLP in place. We started out with the three most important questions to ask and the related use cases to it. This is the other way around. We started out with the three most important use cases and the questions that are aligned to them. So if you have these three in place, the three most important use cases, all the activities in here, you'll have a fairly decent DLP, and I'll put my data in your organization and we're all set. Because I trust you. It's all there. These three. Okay, let's pull them up like this. Poof, there you have it. That's your blueprint, actually, for having a DLP solution in place. I'm going to double click these so we have the job roles as well here. This will be my blueprint for having a DLP solution in place. If I want to think about having a DLP solution in place, what I would do is print this out on an A5 and stick it to the wall and look at it every day. So, and when people come into my office, they go like, "What are you working on?" Well, this is actually what we're trying to deal with and what we're working on. These are all the areas that we're covering. We're doing security mainly, and we're making sure that these big three activities are in place for DLP technologies, and we measure that. Um, so another thing that I can show you with this, we've seen the supporting questions here in orange, and they come from the toolkits and they come from the books that we produce, and that's how they're all organized, these questions, into their maturity. So the further you get into the book or the toolkit, you get more mature and in-depth questions to make sure that you cover all the ground that you need to be covering for DLP technologies. So this is the whole hairball, all the questions that are in there. In each book or toolkit, there are close to 1,000 unique questions related to the topic at hand. And if I zoom in here, I can see some of the questions. Do you create your own DLP policies? Do you have tools to collect logs and metadata from the cloud platform? How to ensure compliance with regulations and security standards as PCI DSS? Does your organization have a data breach mitigation budget? And I can double click on each and every one as well and see what comes up. Here we go, something comes up. It's out of my screen now. There's a lot going on here probably. Yeah, there it is. See what comes up here. Do you create your own DLP policies? I clicked on that question. Test security policies and other methods to validate operation of implemented security controls. All right, that's what we got to do. So see, all these questions are really helpful as well. And I often just pull up these questions in my organization, pull them up and show them on the screen. And say, okay, team, which question are we going to cover as a final question in our team meeting today to ensure that we have all the bases covered? See, lots of questions here. All right, so these are all the questions that are in here, up to 1,000. And the same thing, I can show you what we've shown here in one, is I can show you all the use cases and their related questions. So these are all the use cases that are in these are now the top 100, otherwise the screen would be overwhelmed. Let's just do all of them for the fun of it. See if it actually does that. See what it looks like. It'll probably be a lot because there's a lot of, there we go. Because there's a lot of use cases. There's 2,300 use cases in them, and obviously 2,300. Oh, it looks so nice. 300 questions attached to them, to each and every one of them. But I just want to have a look at the top 10, so I can actually have a look at what's in here instead of looking at one of those great diagrams. There we go. 10. These are the top 10 areas I need to have in place. And I've shown you the top 3 already. In total, this is the total top 10 and directly with their questions attached to this. So if I want to have a great meeting or a great workshop, this is something I can pull up as well. Do we have this? And these are the auditing, the verification questions to make sure that we have that. Really helpful, this. Now, another question I need to be asking myself is who need to know the answers to the questions? What kind of job roles do I need to have in relationship to DLP technologies? These are the top job roles that I often come across when we deal with DLP technologies. We have the network security engineer, the endpoint security engineer, data security head partner, IT security analyst, and the information security manager. These are the people that have roles and responsibilities in relationship to DLP technologies directly. So what this also does, it shows you what kind of responsibilities this person has. These are the responsibilities that this person has. The information security manager. What does the information security manager need to take care of? All these questions, basically. Really helpful. This is also helpful often for job interviews or when I'm preparing for a job. Or I'm putting a new job into play in my organization to figure out what kind of responsibilities and accountabilities need to be in place with that role. Endpoint security engineer, which AWS architecture and migration strategy will meet requirements? I don't know. That's the endpoint security engineer who needs to figure that out. How important is SIEM to the incident response process? What do you do to ensure no data loss? They're not losing any data. See? Endpoint security engineer. How much of that risk is your organization senior leadership team willing to accept? very interesting in-depth questions everywhere to ensure that we have our DLP solution in place. So with that, now you know the top four most important questions to ask. The top three most important questions to ask in relation to DLP solutions and all the activities that need into play and that need to be into place for this, and all the relationships that need to be into place for this, and the job roles that need to be into place for this, to make sure that your DLP solution is structured, organized, and covers all basics. And here you have it. Print this out, pull it up on the wall, stick it up on the wall on an A5, and you'll have your DLP solution in place. Now, don't forget, before I leave you, to go down to the link below in the show notes, and in the bar down under here, DLP Technologies in the store link. That's where you can find the full Kanban. You can play around with it. You can sort, search, find. All the data is in here, and I hope you have a ball with it. If you want to reuse it, you can do that there as well. There's options for that. With that, I'm going to leave you for today. I had a ball. Tomorrow we're going to cover something cloud. Let's have a look. What are we going to cover tomorrow? I can find it here so I can give you a sneak preview. Cloud security compliance. That's our topic for tomorrow. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow.